Hi guys, it's Dakota. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm kind of laughing because it'll keep me from crying. Yeah, so I just did a video and deleted it. I'm going to do another one. It's going to be even better. All right, so we're doing a series again. Last week we talked a little bit about binding, but not in the sense, it was specific to what we're going to be doing in this series, and we're going to be working with the elements, but actually not really working with the elements. We're going to be doing a ritual to and for and with the elements to introduce ourselves to the elements, and also to have the elements know who we are, and so why is that important? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, whoo. Yeah, I was so mad. Look at me. Okay. All right. So first of all, one of the reasons I want to do this will be my second time. Actually, this will be my third time doing this. But the first time it was probably over 25 years ago when I did it. And so I really didn't have that foundation that I work with today. Those of you who know me, who've taken my classes, etc., you know how strongly I feel about having a foundation, a basis for my work. I want to know the root, I want to know why, I want to know how, and I want the structure. And the more structure and the more foundation that you have, and the more you work with it in that sense, the more it helps you in your work. It's because, it's like saying here in Eastern North Carolina, we have hurricanes. So if you just went out and built a grass hut, the chances of that blowing down in a hurricane, it's probably going to happen. So, but if you build something that has a nice sound foundation, then it would be less likely for it to just completely blow away. Although it does happen, but I'm just saying. So for me, as I've grown in my path, it has become significantly important to work from a foundational standpoint. Foundation first, then the walls, then the roof, then add your interior if you want to. But without that strong foundation, I have found that, or let me put it this way, with a strong foundation, things tend to work better. They tend to work faster. So one of the things that I get asked a lot about at the store is spell work. People want to do a spell for this or for that, and they're looking for assistance. And the first question I ask is, what do you know about spell work? Have you done spell work? And usually the answer is no. And, or they read it in a book or something. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. The books are there for, if you find a reputable book, the books are there to help. The books are there as a resource, as a reference. So, what I like people to do is take that book, take that information, and then try to get out of the box a little bit. Even though you may not have a lot of structure and a lot of, foundation below you, it's still, try to think outside the box. If they're telling you that you need this, and you're searching all over for it, you can't find it. Well, what do you have that you can use? What is a substitute? What can we use? That's getting out of the box. And those who have been with me for a while know that, look, sometimes we use what we have. Like, we need to do this right now. What do we have? What do we have here? Okay, we've got this, this, and this. All right, how can we make this work? It's just like I've mentioned in my videos about working with the moon phases and the planets and the dates and all of that. I think it's extremely important. I do. I think it's very, very important. If you can do that, if you have the time to do that, if you have the means to do that. But if I have somebody that is that has fallen ill and they are being rushed to the hospital and they have asked me to please, do some kind of a healing spell, oh, I'm sorry, you'll have to wait until the full moon. I mean, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I mean, absolutely, I'm going to do it right now. I don't care if it's sunshine or midnight. I don't care if, I'm going to figure it out. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time surfing the internet, or which I hate to say that because here I am on the internet, but you're going to use what you have. What do you have available? That's what you're going to use, and you're going to put your utmost focused intention into that. So when we can get the items, and we have the items, and the moon is right, and the planets are aligned, and this and that, and the time of day, and da-da-da, and all of those, when all of those line up and you have the time to do that, then that is awesome. That's really awesome. But let's be real. When you work a full-time job and you have a life outside of work, sometimes it's not manageable to do that when you need something. When something is urgent, you're going to do it. It's just the way it is. When you have time for other things, then that is perfect. That is perfect. So when I start thinking about the elements in spell work, because when you do a spell, I don't care if you're doing fire magic, I don't care if you're doing something with water magic, whatever it is that you're doing in spell work, you're using the elements. You're using the elements. So then I always wonder, well, if you're using the elements, are you calling in the elements? Or are you just saying, oh, I saw this really cool, video with this, or I read it in a book with that, and so you go out and you grab a candle and you light it and you just let it go, and that's fine. That's fine. But what gift have you left? What sacrifice have you left? Have you thanked the element, and how have you thanked the element? Do you know what requirements the element would like? What is the element like? Just like if you work with deity, or you work with spirit guides, or the ancestors, or people leave offerings. We leave offerings. We leave things in gratitude for the assistance, because that's what it is. And when we're calling in the elements, when we're using the elements for our spell crafting, then we're using them. You want to give some sort of gratitude back. It would kind of be like the guy next door, who always needs a ride to the grocery store, and you give him a ride like 2 days a week, and he's like, yeah, thanks, man, and that's it. But in the meantime, you're taking your time, your gas to go and do it, and it's a kind deed. I understand that. But after a while, it's like, look, you at least need to pay me, a couple dollars a week for gas or my time or something, so I just kind of feel the same way when we are using the elements, or if you're working with the guides of any kind, whether it's deity or, or the guides, they want something, and I'm not going to even say they want something. What I'm saying is it would be in your best interest to give an offering and of thanks, give them something in return. So that being said, then, well, you have to know them. You have to know the elements. Because this series is about the elements, and it's also about binding, which we did last week. That was the prelude to this series. So if you haven't watched that, you might want to watch that, because it's not binding in the sense that everybody thinks, that we're binding, that kind of thing. Just watch the video, and then you'll get a little bit more sense of what we're doing, because we are going to, the end result of this video, of this series is a ritual that you will be able to do to sort of bind your energies with the elements, the energies of the elements, okay? But in order to do that, don't you want to know them? Because I would. You know what I mean? I mean, like you want to know. You want to know what you're doing. So, so part of the reason that we're doing this series, that I'm doing this series, is that, and that is, if someone is doing a spell for healing and they're using water, then I would ask, why are you using water? Well, because I heard water's emotion, or water's is good for healing. Okay, but there's other elements that you can use for healing as well. So why, why water? What makes you think that water, what about water? What about water? It's wet, So that's what I'm talking about. There's more to it. It's deeper than that. Deep waters. It's deeper than that, and it's something that needs to be looked into. So, and the other thing is when, the more you know about the element, the more you know about how it works, how it reacts, what its weaknesses are and what its strengths are. Because if you think about it, like, its weaknesses, what? Well, a fire is extremely powerful, as are all the elements. I mean, the element of air, hurricanes, I don't know if you've ever been in one, but they are not pleasant. I've been through several, and they are very scary and very destructive. But let's look at fire. Fire is very, the birds are out there having a feast. Fire can be very erratic. It's very powerful. It's swift, can be very swift moving, and it's extremely powerful. But guess what? This water, just snuffed out that flame. So then who's stronger, water or fire? Neither. They're the same. They have the same weaknesses and the same strengths within their own energies. You can have tsunamis, and you can have calm waters when the surfers want to go out and surf, but it's calm and there's no waves. So each has its strength and each has its weaknesses. So you're going to want to know that. You want to know that. What are they? And then what would calm that? Which of the other elements would calm fire? Or which of the other elements would increase air? Those types of things. Well, in the same respect, then, the element needs to know you. They need to know you. What are your energies about? If you're an air sign, I'm an air sign. So if you're an air sign, am I always going to use air because I'm an air sign, so I should use air? No, I rarely use air, as you know. I'm a fire person. But I know air, and I've worked with air. One-on-one, I have introduced myself to air. I have introduced my weaknesses and my strengths to air. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're going to do. So that's what this video is about. It is about introducing ourselves to each of the elements, and also to learn about each of those elements, their strengths and their weaknesses. Because if you just work, and I've talked about it before, if you just work with one element too strongly and there's no balance, it's almost like the chakras. If you watch the chakra series, if you didn't watch that, hey, it's in the playlist, by the way. I learned how to do that. So now if you just click on the playlist, you'll see the playlist for all the series, the chakra series. So you don't have to, search through all my videos. Yay. But just like the chakras, the chakras get unaligned. They get unbalanced. And so you have to work on aligning the chakras. And so it's kind of the same thing with the elements. I do work with fire a lot, and I do have to force myself to work with some of the other elements, because I just feel so, I don't know why, I just feel so attached to fire. And I've had long conversations with fire to find out, you know, like why am I so drawn to fire? And I just am. And I would even say that air is probably my least favorite. I'm going to use the word favorite, and I apologize, errors, no offense, but my least go-to. How's that? That's better. My least go-to element that I work with is air. I say that, and yet with fire magic, I am working with every single element, right? You have the candle, you can consider that earth. The flame, fire, the wax, the melted wax, water, and then the smoke is air. So you're working with all of the elements. And here's the thing, you better understand the elements. You need to understand the elements. The more you know about them and the more they know about you, the better relationship you're going to have. Seriously, the better relationship you're going to have. On a conscious level, as well as a subconscious level, they understand where you're coming from, and you understand where they're coming from. So they just want to know, you know, it's just a good idea to get to know you. All right. Now, so the little history, the little class on the element of air, which is what we're working on first, is the direction. The cardinal direction is east. That is where, that is where the sun rises. And so that is the beginning of the day. It's the beginning of the color that corresponds with air is yellow. And so at the beginning of this video, I hope it comes out there, you'll see a picture of, you saw a picture of the daffodil. So it wasn't a picture, I'm not taking a picture of the plant, the daffodil. I mean, I am, but I'm using the daffodil, the color of the daffodil, yellow, for air. And also because the daffodils are just now starting to bloom. There's that new, there's that beginning. Okay, there's that beginning. So the other thing that I did was you know, I'm always holding my tarot cards. Sometimes I just have them. I have them in my hand. I just hold them. And so today I was like, you know, the swords represents the element of air in tarot. Swords does. And so I went through my Witch's Tarot deck and I pulled the Ace of Swords. And the reason I pulled the Ace is because the Ace in any of the suits, whether it's swords or wands, cups, the pentacles, the coin card, the Ace is always the beginning of that particular suit, that journey. So this is the Ace, the beginning of, and then swords, air. Hawk happens to be my spirit animal, my main spirit animal. I have a couple, but he happens to be my main one. Or she, whichever the case. Usually it's she. Usually I always see her. And we have probably usually about 3 every year. They nest here in the woods. And in fact, I just saw her last night. So anyway, but you can see, so here again, if we look at this card, let's talk about air. The hawk is soaring through air. His body is made of feathers. Feathers are the element of air. So there's a lot of clouds. There's air. Sky is air. So I chose this card because the work that we're going to do today, that I'm going to show you today, is something for you to think about when you set up your little sacred space for your work that you're going to be doing. So this is a process. This is a process. Today we're only working with air. So I've chosen to work with the Ace of Swords as my part of my sacred space. Okay. You're also going to see a picture of me skydiving, and that's, if there's also a video somewhere, you'll have to search down, and I wanted to say that it's called Experiencing the Elements, something like that. You should really watch that video. It was an incredible spiritual experience when I went skydiving. And I talk a little bit about air. I also talk about water. But it was a very, very unique experience for me, experiencing air. The other things that you should be doing this week until next video is making sure that you are, throughout the day, all day, wherever you are, if you're outside, if you're inside, what things are air? You know, like look around, what things are air? The leaves are blowing, okay, that's air. The birds are flying, that's air. We're talking, that's air. We're breathing, that's air. The flags are flickering, why? Oh, the fan is on, okay, that's air. Start observing air, but not just, oh yeah, that's air. Oh yeah, that's air. Observe air. Get to know air. What is it? What does it do? What does air do? So start to think about that. All right, breath work is really important too. That breathing in and exhaling out. Both are air. Breathing in and exhaling out. Both are air. Okay, let's get to the actual what we're going to be doing. All right, so what you're going to need for the end result of this series is the first thing you're going to need is a yellow candle. Now I have chosen to use tapers this time. I usually use chime candles because the burn time is a little bit quicker, but I've chosen to use the tapers this time because I am going to be, so when we talk about dressing, I'm using tapers. If you want to use a votive, you can. If you want to use a pillar candle, you can. If you want to use tea lights, you can. And this really depends on the amount of burn time that you want. And for me, I wanted just a little bit longer burn time, but and this is something that I've done. This is probably the fourth time that I've done this. I just wanted to do something different this time, and I needed a bigger candle, so this is what I did. All right, so what I did was, first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to need to inscribe on your candle, and you're going to inscribe your name. After all, you are going to be introducing yourself to the element of air. So what name do you use when you are doing your magical things? Do you use your given name, or do you have a magical name that you use? However you want to introduce yourself to that element, remember that is the name that element is going to know you by. So that is very important. If you decide that you're going to be called, trying to look around, you're going to be called Bert. I got a little thing. I got Bert's bees. Chapstick. Bert is your magical name, and you'd go through this ritual and introduce yourself as Bert. Remember that when you go to do your spell work and you go to call the element in, that you are calling in as Bert, not as whoever, because the element knows you as that. But that is one of the reasons why I had to do another ritual of introduction, because I did an introduction and I had used a magical name that no longer is who I am. And so therefore I wanted to change that. And in order to change that, I reintroduced myself, if that makes sense. All right, so let's get to talking about, all right, so the first thing you're going to do is inscribe your candle. And that is you're going to want to put your name on there, whether it's your given name or your maiden name, or your given name or your magical name, and maybe you go by your maiden name, I don't know. And you can do that in a sigil. No, we haven't talked about sigils. So if you don't know about sigils, then don't worry about it and don't do a sigil. You can. I've already done mine. I've got a bunch of stuff. Now, if you can see right there, see the line? So I actually drew a line. You can do this with pins. You can do it with cloves. You can do it with little pieces of stick. Whatever you want. If you decide that you want to split the candle's energy in two, that's what I'm doing. So what I did is I didn't want to use pins. I didn't want to use anything else. And there's a reason why, which you'll see at the end. But so I just inscribed, I just did a halfway circle around, at the halfway point. You can see it there. I did that circle. On the top part, I inscribed my introduction. Who I am. I used a sigil. Some other words that I put out there for air. On the second half, I put in air. And I did use this symbol for air. Y'all know the symbol for air? Hard to do here. So that's the symbol for air. And I drew that symbol on here, and I drew some other words down here. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, now y'all know I'm going to, I have chosen orange blossom water. It's cologne, but I call it water. And I'm just going to put it on my finger because I'm at my desk here and I don't want to get everything everywhere. What I'm going to do right now is I am just simply I'm just sort of purifying it. I don't know, kind of cleansing it. It's not really cleansing, but it's just something that I do. You don't have to do this part if you don't want to. This is just something that I do. Now, when I'm doing this part of it, for me, it doesn't matter if I go out with this or if I go in with it. Okay? Because this is all I'm doing is just sort of like a cleansing kind of thing. And I chose orange blossom because I think of summer, and summer reminds me of air. I don't know. The next thing I'm going to do then is I have chosen, this is azure green. It is not my favorite oil, but it is sage and cedar. And I chose this because sage and cedar are what I burn to purify and cleanse my space. So the smoke is air. So that's why I chose to use the oil. Now, here's what I'm doing on the oil. And again, I'm just going to dab it on my fingers. On that halfway mark, remember this top part is my introduction. So I am going to dress out to the universe. I'm dressing out to the element of earth, of air, and I am sending this message out. I make sure I get my wick, and I'm just to the halfway mark. And I'm only rubbing out. I'm sending a message out to the element of air. Okay? The next thing, then, keeping the candle exactly as it is, with the wick pointed out. Now, at the halfway part where air is, where I've inscribed air, I'm bringing that in, because the first thing I'm going to do, like, you don't just walk up to somebody and say, hey, tell me about yourself. You introduce yourself first, which is what I've done. I'm introducing myself, and now I'm bringing it in, and I always do the bottom as well, which has also inscribed on the bottom. So what I'm doing now is bringing air's energy into me, and I only bring it in towards me. Okay? All right. So now it's dressed. Whoops. And what I'm going to do, since all I'm doing is prepping for next week, or for the end of the series. Woo, that smells good. I'm just going to put this in. My hands are oily. I have a little box here. It's a Game of Thrones. We sell these at the shop. They're on sale, by the way. Not many left. Better get them. But somebody wanted the journal, their journals, and they didn't want the box that it came in. So lucky me, I got the box. I just put some wax paper in there because this is full of oil. What I'm doing, I'm just keeping it in the box. It's in the box. Keeping it dark and away from any other energies. So that is almost ready. It'll be complete when we get ready to do the ritual, which will be at the end of the series. Okay, and that is when we're going to be, what we'll actually be doing is breathing life into thought, actually, using the element of air itself, breathing that into the candle, which we're asking for introduction of, if that makes sense. So, okay, so that's what I have for you today. So you're going to need a yellow candle, doesn't matter which kind. You're going to want to be able to inscribe on it, though, and then dress it however you want. An oil that corresponds with air. So I use sage because when you burn sage, it's air, element of air. And then the only other thing you're going to want to do is start thinking about and writing out an introduction for the ritual. So you're going to need that, an introduction. And we'll talk more about that each week. But right now, you'll need your yellow candle because you want to go ahead and start thinking about what you want to inscribe on it and get it dressed. And it goes right in, keep it in a safe place. And next week, we'll move to the next element. Okay? All right. So I think that's everything that we have right now. Your introduction should, have your name, like what is your name? What is it that you want to say to the element of air? What do you want from air? What do you want to give air? Start to recognize air, look around. What do you think air would like as an offering? Okay. All right. So this is a long video. Apologize. And I'll see you next week and we'll be doing our second element. Okay. Bye guys. Have a great week.